Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games. This is the final day of the first week of Phase 2, and we're about to get into our second match of the day. Once again, I'm TJ, joined by Kevin Hovdestad, and we started off with a good matchup, but I'm expecting more for the next two.
Yeah, it's really fun to have three really great matchups lined up tonight. Obviously, South Korea, I think, played some really phenomenal games, and we probably, if we were being honest, were expecting them to do well just because they have such an incredibly talented lineup of players who've shown so much potential over the course of professional Hearthstone over the last couple of years. But this next matchup, I think, is actually maybe one of the more interesting and more even ones we're going to see tonight.
Sure, and taking a look at it, Brazil versus Taiwan. Now, both of these teams have some really big names. I think Taiwan may have some more recognizable. For those of you who don't follow hardcore into the competitive scene, with Tom and Pimping Ho and even Roger, who hasn't been a part of big competitions recently. At the very beginning of Hearthstone, he was probably one of the biggest household names in the game.
Yeah, and they're going to be up against Brazil. And Brazil, if you've been watching global games at all, obviously has demonstrated phenomenal capacity. Legolas, Kaglorin, Loxodantes, and Leomane all doing phenomenally well in this tournament. Brazil, I think, really one of the surprise kind of underdog stories where the last time I was here, actually, for global games, Brazil played. And they did a really good job. On the whole, I think they're a country that people just... We constantly talk about, you know, how these players are good in their region. They're good in Copa America, and they've done well in their own sort of hotbed of Hearthstone activity. But out in the world, they're really successful.
Oh, yeah. We actually have the first Brazilian player competing at a regional championship with Diego Diaz going to Shanghai in just a few weeks. But there's Taiwan. Taiwan, for how small of a place it is, actually produces a ton of great esports teams across most games. So it is in their culture more so than a lot of other places in the world. But in Hearthstone specifically, they've had a ton of success, especially with the players that are on this Global Games lineup.
Yeah, I think in particular, you know, Tom is somebody that we've just become accustomed to seeing at every major Hearthstone tournament, in every format, at every level of play. He's just always around, and he's always very successful. He's a very innovative player.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is, and he's always a player whose decks make it over into the Western scene as well. He's a player who, for the past 2 seasons in HUT, has been one match away from making it. So it's definitely a story of one of the best players probably of all time. I think if there was a Hearthstone Hall of Fame, not for the cards, for the players, if there was a Hearthstone Hall of Fame, Tom would have already qualified for it like a year ago. So there we go, taking a look at the lineups. You could tell a lot about how much respect the players have for the people on their team by who plays the ace match.
Can we just stop for a moment and comment on 2 things? 1, there's no mirror matchups all the way down possible. 2, they're not letting Pimping Ho play Shaman.
Wow.
That is totally unusual. Every time I've seen Pimping Ho play, in any tournament, he has Shaman, he represents Shaman, he would have had Shaman. He might have not chosen to use it, but it would have been attached to his name.
Now, there's one thing about Pimping Ho that I think the world needs to know, and that is the reason why he loves Shaman so much, or has loved it in the past, is because not many other people were playing it.
That's fair.
He could innovate with it, he could do crazy things with it, and he was the Shaman because nobody else was the Shaman.
Yeah, okay.
Nowadays, Shaman is one of the most popular decks in tournament lineups, on ladder, just about everywhere. And so Pimping Ho, when he sees that, he's like, I don't really care about Shaman anymore because everybody's playing it. So maybe now he's latched on to Priest.
Could very well be. It looks like, though, for the first matchup, Loxodantes has gone to Druid. Not a huge surprise there. I'm guessing aggressive, knowing that they were up against Rogue and Hunter. And between Rogue and Hunter from Malagos, I think the strategy there was probably always play Rogue.
Yeah.
Hunter's one of the classes that right now there's not just very much flexibility. If you're playing Hunter, you're playing kind of that mid-range style, and they've probably decided that it's not a risk they want to take, especially early on. This first matchup might dictate a little bit of the pace of this matchup.
Yeah, and there's the players. Taiwan, of course, I mentioned it's a pretty small place, so it's not too hard for them all to get together and play Hearthstone as a team. So pretty cool to see them all in one spot.
The other side, though, Loxodantes is all smiles. Brazil looks like they've got a plan in mind here, and he's checking himself out in the camera a little bit here, having a laugh. So this is definitely 2 teams that are excited to play tonight.
Yeah, Brazil, on the other hand, is actually a giant country. And
enormous.
After speaking with the players, they don't all live near the same spot. So I think like Legolas, I can't remember exactly where they live, but you know they're very spread out from each other, and While the Brazilian Hearthstone community is close, as like a, I want to say emotionally, but that sounds
Maybe a bit of a stretch, but
They're-
okay.
they're-
I like where it comes
they're
from.
close emotionally. They're not close geographically, if that makes any sense.
It's like you and I. We're far apart physically, but
Yeah.
we're mentally, we're very close.
We're,
right now.
we're one and the same. And there's Loxodontes. He's probably the least known out of the 4 Brazilian players as far as competitive games go. But after talking with a couple of the Brazilian players, they both have a lot of respect for him. And one of the questions I ask when I do my interviews for HAG is, did you know the players before you started playing together in the global games? And the Brazilian players are one of the teams where they all said, yeah, we all knew each other, because the Brazilian Hearthstone, the top tier of competitive community, we've been playing in tournaments together for years. So they all did know each other, which is not the same for a lot of the other countries that we see in global games.
Yeah, I think for the majority of the teams, this was in some cases their first exposure to some of the other players they're playing with. There are a couple of very specific exceptions to that, but on the whole, you're right. There's very few Hearthstone communities that are that tight knit, and all of the South American and Latin American countries seem to have that really like group feel where they're all kind of supportive of one another, they're aware of one another, they play with each other, they practice with each other. That's probably going to give them a little bit of an edge against most other countries. That may not be the case against Taiwan.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same case with a lot of the Asia-Pacific countries as well, how they're very close-knit. And you can see that there were a lot of South American and a lot of Asia-Pacific countries that qualified for the second phase of global games. Whereas we look at the percentage of European teams, for example, as a contrast,
So many of them were eliminated.
so many of them were eliminated because they don't have that close field. They have a very I mean, Hearthstone is a one-player game. It's a very individualistic type of game, but you can see the countries that are used to working together in the past definitely have an edge.
That's a tough mulligan here for Taiwan, opening with Preparation, Coin, and a Swashbuckler. That is not, I think, what they were hoping to see.
I don't know, though. All of a sudden, any draw on the deck.
I mean, okay, we've had this conversation. I'm just looking at the situation here, and I feel like as the rogue player right now, any draw you were saying, hey?
What do they call this deck, Kevin? What's this deck called?
Well, now it's called Tarantis Rogue, because that's what they drew off their Swashbuckler.
AKA Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, all right. I'm looking right now at the outcomes here.
They can get a
Brazil-
Tyrannus out on turn 8.
But Brazil, you have to see here, like, they've got the ability right here to Firefly, Flame Elemental, Bloodsail Corsair, which will pull patches, and Mark of the Lotus, all of that. That's such an incredible, incredible opening. I feel like in some ways they just have to go for it. When you're presented with that much power, you're very rarely in a position where it's the wrong choice to get really aggressive, especially knowing that in your mulligan you've got Living Mana as a built-in board flood to put you right back on the board if for some reason you do lose your overwhelming early game board presence.
You get 3 2/3s and a 2/2 with charge on turn 1.
Seems good.
Miracle Druid.
Yes. Something happened here, guys, and it looks pretty good.
Yeah. All right, just take a look at the webcam from Taiwan, since all the players are together.
Yeah, you just look how wide-eyed they're going. You can see Tom just sitting in the back going, oh, okay, yeah, this happens sometimes.
Tom's like, I've played 30,000 games of Hearthstone, and that happens to me every single day. Let's all laugh it off, but inside we're dying.
And unfortunately, if you're Taiwan, you have no answer here. I mean, you can literally kill one minion on the board. And, I mean, obviously, Brazil is all in on this. They emptied their hand. There's no draw to speak of in Aggro Druid. You have what, like Mark of Yshiraj, if it hits a beast? There's no draw in this deck. So there's not going to be further threats coming out from the Brazilian team. At this point, the question is, can Taiwan get back in this game?
I mean, they may even coin Vilespine Slayer this turn just to contest something that's on the board. They can coin Vilespine Slayer, prep, eviscerate, and actually have a board advantage.
I mean,
but also no cards in hand, but per Tyrannus.
But I mean, that's the exact same situation that the Brazilian team is in. They blew their entire hand, save for Living Mana, to get this board presence initially. If it costs you your whole hand to answer what was the entire hand of your opponent, the rogue player here, like if you're Taiwan, you just want to survive until you can get some amount of advantage in terms of better draw or starting to cycle. You've got the ability to take tempo back, and it's insane. It's a scary looking series of plays, but it's also going to force Brazil to come up with new things to do, because I mean, we know right now their hand is saying you don't get to do anything for the next 2 turns.
Yeah.
Do you think they prep the Eviscerate?
I don't think so. I think you evaluate your next draw first. All of a sudden, if you pick up an SI agent or an Edwin, then
Swipe definitely
changes your plans.
not actually what you want here as Brazil.
oh no, this is. I mean, living mana is going to do a lot of work, but they still need to get to the living mana turn. But I mean, they are putting on a lot of damage. Like,
Yeah, 5 damage a turn is really not as little as it sounds. That's that right now. That's representing a lot of potential damage over the course of a couple of turns. Phantom Knives really good, but at this point you might have to hang on to it.
yeah, you can prep Finn and hope that your next draw is good and playable at 4 mana, but there's not really much that does that. I mean, Edwin would be great because it's a 6/6, but outside of that, there's not much. I mean, you saw your opponents pass. They likely have a combination of living mana and like Bittertide Hydra. Even a buff spell they would have used by now. So I think you might even be able to take this a little bit slower.
I mean, it's definitely just tough because that hurts.
Awkward.
You just don't have the ability to answer living mana when it happens, right? When that living mana play occurs, you just don't have any resource to respond to it. Even Quest Rogue at least has Vanish on a subsequent turn most of the time. That's not going to be the case here. So I feel like Taiwan is sort of starting to stabilize a little bit. They probably just play the Tar Creeper here. And
I think Swipe Face actually has a lot of merit.
I mean, it could. I just look at it and think that protecting your board is more valuable.
Yeah, I guess.
Because they know they've got living mana or charging Druid of the Claw on a subsequent turn, and Swipe at this point no longer represents board clear, it represents reach. And if it's their reach spell, they really don't need to use it here.
Well, they could reach for face damage.
I mean, they certainly can.
They can reach in their hand and pick up the swipe and point it at the face. Now that's some reach.
That is some reach. They're clearly negotiating. They're having the same conversation right there that you and I are right now. What do we do here? What do we do?
Boo.
Looks like
This is probably better play.
the debate is over. Tar Creeper hits the board.
Yeah. Ooh, Zeril.
Zeril's not bad.
But Zeril's interesting. It's not a card that's included a lot in Miracle Rogue.
What do they get here? Oh,
Fade Leaf Toxin, that's the
not what they were after, unfortunately.
the conceal for a turn and targeted at 1 minion.
If they'd been lucky and they'd been able to hit 2 damage, they could actually clear the board here, which would have been really valuable. So I don't know that Stealth actually offers them anything of value at this point. They probably just have to hold that and wait to see. I mean, they could ostensibly yet hit an Auctioneer next turn and still have the ability to do some pretty awesome cycling, maybe hit something of value. But I mean, the living mana threat is so real right now.
Yeah. What?
This is interesting. Okay. So they're just going to protect the additional body. What is the long-term strategy there, you think? Is there a long-term strategy there?
They are playing to their out. They want to draw Auctioneer next turn, exactly.
I mean, I guess that is the best possible case scenario for them here. Unfortunately, Swipe can still deal with the Vilespine Slayer. I mean, I guess, do you Tar Creeper into Zeril at that point? Or are they just going to living mana and set up lethal here? What is a very difficult decision. I feel like Brazil's so far ahead that they can afford to play this however they want to.
Almost all of their lines are a winning line. It just is a matter of which one wins the most of the time.
What is the winningest line?
What is the winningest line? And it looks like it's going to be this, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just do the 1 damage to face. just because there's no point. They're going to have to attack in to evaluate the next turn anyway. What the one mana potion is. It does activate backstab, but I don't think you're too worried about that at this point. Ooh, King Blood
Draw is
Toxin.
nice. Van Cleef also, I mean, do you eviscerate and play Edwin? Do you like they clearly did this to set up the Vile Spine? Do you prep the eviscerate to get the biggest possible Edwin and just risk dying? No, they're going to go the safe line. This is probably the correct decision. I mean, I don't think it wins them the game, but it buys them a little time.
Oh no, we're gonna. This living mana is come on and slam, and welcome to the jam.
Here's their chance.
Everybody get up.
Yeah, so I mean Taiwan I think is just gonna have to look at this and say there's nothing we can do. They can clear 2 minions here, and that's the best case scenario.
Which is not enough.
Not enough, no matter how you slice it. So
let's prep the Tyrannus.
if that worked, that would be really cool. Unfortunately,
still losing the game.
If prep discounted minions, Rogue would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So very, very strong opening from Brazil. That's the type of game you want when you play this aggressive Druid deck. You want the kind of game where you get to just dump your hand on turn 1 and create a board that your opponent has to use all of their resources to answer, because then you just win the first time that living mana or some other way to reestablish yourself on the board happens.
Yeah. Loxodon is very happy.
I think he was happy before. Now he's really happy.
He's also got a giant bed.
I don't think that was that big a bed.
Or he's a tiny man.
That could be both.
He could have a giant bed and be a tiny man. That thing was huge. I hope we get to see that again, because
I feel like you're just sleeping on too small of a bed, TJ. That's my takeaway here.
no, I have a pretty big bed too, but I respect a man with a bigger bed than me.
That's fair. All right, so second game here. Pimping Ho for Taiwan gonna play his mage deck. Just so weird to say Pimping Ho and not say Shaman. And Kaglorian, actually, interestingly, I am surprised by this choice, edging away from Paladin in favor of Hunter. I would not have predicted that looking at this lineup initially.
Well, if you look, yeah, actually that's true. Because of the fact that, so there might be some mind games going on here, because Paladin decks, while they generally have good matchups against, Murloc Paladin has good matchups against both Priest and Mage, almost all of them.
Yeah.
That's weird. Maybe they know that they're going to pick the Mage. They want them to pick the Mage. Hunter is better against the Mage than the Paladin would be.
So the last time I was here casting for Global Games, we did actually see a Hunter deck that had teched Flare specifically to go after Mage.
Yeah.
That's not an unheard of thing in a situation like this, where you're really specifically like, you're just not going to play Hunter unless you think you're going to get Mage, and then you bring it out. Otherwise, it's just a deck that you've left in kind of your stable, and that's part of why you pair it with Paladin, which is a deck that has so many good matchups and so few bad ones.
Yeah.
This is it has the potential to be a very interesting, very tech-heavy game, and that's really exciting, actually.
Yeah. I mean, even without Flare, Hunter usually does well against slower mages because they have reach, they have damage from hand, and they also have the hero power, which can, help get to that ice block earlier and help get to the ice block better without using resources. So a lot of times it does do well. It also gets on the board pretty early against Secret Mage.
Right.
So it can contest. But Paladin sort of is the same thing in a little bit better way. So
even then, if you're playing like Paladin, you fish for an eye with Hydrologist, and you just make it so that's an unlosable game for you. And
most Paladin decks just have similar, if not better, win rates than Hunter decks would against Mage. So it's a little interesting to me that they paired those classes together when they're trying to,
give themselves.
If they're trying to target Mage, because both do well against Mage. And just a little theory crafting on the Pimping Ho not being on Shaman. If they're all in the same room, I mean, they're all playing the game, right?
Yeah, he's still technically driving Shaman. He's just backseat driving Shaman.
Yeah, exactly.
So. I'm super excited to see what exactly it is that they've done here, because the choice to go Hunter, I'm excited, but I'm definitely surprised. So I do want to see exactly what the strategy is here that has led them to go this direction.
Well, looks like a Hunter deck to me.
Yes. So far, so good. Definitely has some Hunter cards in it. So
that's a Hunter card. That is also a Hunter hero power.
So what do you do in Hunter that specifically suggests you would take it to target Mage. Rat Pack doesn't telegraph very much either. I'm curious to see. There's got to be some kind of tech here that we just aren't aware of yet.
Look at that Mage hand.
It's a very nice start for the Mage player.
Ignore the Pyroblast, and that is Craigasm worthy.
It's everything they wanted, that's for sure. I am curious to see, though. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit already. If the Hunter gets on the board and has a good early game board presence, it's still very difficult for Mage to react to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like Mana Worm here, if they coin out the Arcane Intellect, they can get the trade, but they're still going to have to worry about the board presence of Hunter. Mage, particularly these styles of Mage, when you're so all in on Arcanologists and Secrets and getting to Medivh's Valets and things for your ability to get efficient trades, you don't actually have good board removal, right? There's maybe a Volcanic Potion, sometimes, not always. We've seen, obviously, the one Meteor, but that's not going to help you with a board that goes really wide after Rat Pack gets hit with a Houndmaster. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see how this plays out.
I mean, if you get the board lead early, it doesn't matter.
That's true. It really doesn't. I don't know. I think this is going to be... It's going to be tough to call because we just don't know enough about what the strategy was in terms of bringing Hunter. So there's got to be something here that we're not aware of, where you would make this choice over running Paladin, which is something that is so, I mean, not just viable, but specifically good in both of these matchups, like you said.
So I have a ton of good Pimping Hoe stories. And I'm trying to pick and choose in my brain now which ones to tell.
I mean, we got lots of time. If you feel like there's multiple, I feel like you should just take us on a storied journey through the life and times of Pimping Hoe.
I'll go back to it was late last year in December. I went to Southeast Asia for the Malaysia Major, and Pimping Hoe was there. And of course, when I saw Pimping Hoe, I was like, "Oh, it's Pimping Hoe." So I went over to him. I said hello, and he asked me, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
Okay.
Like that's the question that he chose to ask me after I asked him how he was. What are you doing here? I don't know, Pimping Hoe. I came all the way to Malaysia just to say hello to you. But I understood what he meant. It's just the way he put it. He's so upfront about everything. You know, he doesn't. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and in his words, he doesn't hold anything back, which is what I love about him. And he meant hey, why would you come to Malaysia to cast?
Right.
Instead of stay home and cast, something like that. But it came off as what are you doing here?
Why?
It was really funny.
What are you doing here? Not what are you doing here?
Yeah.
That's funny. So I was actually interested to watch here as they tried to make the decision. Are we more afraid of allowing them to go wide on the board here with 3 tokens that could potentially be buffed by Leok or a Direwolf Alpha, which I wasn't expecting off the top here? Or do they want to play around the possibility of the Rat Pack getting hit with Houndmaster? And they chose to go the latter direction and make sure that they got that answered early. They're actually going to go ahead here and Houndmaster a token. I don't actually dislike this. It does set up a pretty good board here, and this is going to get progressively more difficult for the Mage to answer. Now they can play a counterspell, coin the Medivh's Valet here, which would be a pretty good trade on the whole. But their long-term game strategy revolves very specifically around getting to that Onyxia Pyroblast turn, and that's going to take some time.
Yeah, this is actually tough. Blood Mage Thanos plus a ping, they're taking a ton of damage.
That's a very risky play, yeah.
That opens up coin Meteor for the following turn, and it also just draws them a card. It allows them to sort of start chipping away at the board, which is important.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's enough ways to protect yourself against the Meteor here. That Direwolf Alpha is really great here. Leroy is not a card I was expecting to see here, but that's a great inclusion. They can also get the second Rat Pack down and protect themselves against a board wipe.
Yeah.
This is just so much damage. Hunter, this is the thing that people forget about Hunter, I think, as a whole, is that once Hunter is on the board, it pushes damage fast. Like, if this were to be Direwolf Alpha and a Huffer, that's going to be 5 plus 4 is 9 plus 4 is 13 damage on turn 5. And they can just set up lethal over 3 turns here, even if the board gets cleared. And they've got the hero power to just keep popping the ice block. The opportunity to even defensive Alexstrasza will never come up if they get the maximum amount of damage possible here.
Yeah.
So I like the Animal Companion choice, especially if they're thinking now about the possibility of Counterspell being one of the secrets.
Did somebody say Huffer?
I did specifically wonder about Huffer. So they might actually here choose to just Hero Power, hold the Direwolf Alpha back. Although I feel like the Direwolf Alpha would be their best chance at playing around the Meteor if they're thinking about it.
But there's a lot of merit. Yeah, I think Hero Power, weaving in the Hero Power is incredibly important. And Pimping was laughing because a Huffer just went into a Blood Mage Thanos.
Yeah, it's not what you're expecting
That's
to
a
see.
lot of damage to go into Blood Mage Thanos. I know what they were worried about. They were worried about Volcanic Potion. But Volcanic Potion plus Ping clears off their board anyway. Or it clears off much of their board anyway. I don't think you're too worried about that, especially since you had a board that was Volcanic Potionable earlier on in the game.
Yeah, and not getting the counterspell out and using Medea's Valet, I think they're gonna live to regret, because it would have prevented the Animal Companion and gotten them a really efficient trade. Whereas now, I mean, there's just so much damage that's gonna keep coming down. I like here getting Rat Pack out to benefit from Leok, so that they have to clear Leok before they can touch the Rat Pack. Man, these turns just keep getting more and more awkward for Taiwan.
Yeah, they don't have enough mana to, say, go for a secret Medea's Valet and ping something off. If they polymorph the Leok, well, they could polymorph the Rat Pack would probably be better if you're not expecting enough damage to come out. But man, it looks like they're just gonna develop a secret.
The problem with that strategy at this point, though, is that we know how much damage exists for Brazil, and like it's not lethal next turn, even if they optimize for the most possible damage output.
It is almost, actually, hold on. It would be 5 damage from the board. Direwolf Alpha
turns that into 6, 7.
Plus Leroy is actually
Another 7 for 14.
No, it's actually another 8 because you put it next to the Direwolf Alpha.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, so they're 1 off.
They would be 1 off.
Oh my goodness. But it's okay, so still technically not lethal, but I mean, there's very little that they can do to recover from this. And there is a flare. So this is exactly what I was thinking, is that they're just trying to set up, if they can get this is perfect. Just put them at 1 health with flare in hand and you win the game.
Oh, would it be 2 off? I think it might be 2 off because Leroy would be 8 attack. Yeah, it'd be 7 plus 8, so it'd be 2 off in that case.
But flare hero power is still enough, to say nothing of the Eaglehorn bow in hand.
Yeah.
I think if you're Brazil, you're setting up lethal over 2 turns
but
here.
But Counterspell blocks the flare. I know it's unintuitive, but Counterspell blocks the flare. So if they set up an ice block, flare does not, and the Counterspell is still up, flare does nothing.
I wonder if that's why they've chosen here to equip the bow instead of play Leroy. I wonder if they're actually playing to try and fish out something else. I mean, they have to get the ice block up here now. The ice block has to come out to protect them.
Yeah. I mean, either way, next turn, if ice block is developed, they pop the block.
Yeah,
it
doesn't matter.
It's just, yeah, so, I mean, the counterspell will block the flare unless they pick up a spell to block it another way or to proc the counterspell another way. But still, I mean, we're still 2 turns away from a defensive Alexstrasza. Unless there's another ice block come off the top or from a primordial glyph next turn, Taiwan's in trouble.
Arcanologist could also technically fish up. If they hit the second Arcanologist, they could hit the second ice block. But I mean, we're talking about a string of things that just barely keep them alive and get them to a defensive Alexstrasza, which maybe puts them in a position where they survive for an extra 2 turns.
Yeah.
And that's assuming both blocks are used, all of their other really good resources are just gone.
Yeah.
So popping the Rat Pack here probably feels good, just insurance against the possibility of a second Houndmaster.
Yeah, they've seen both Animal Companions and a Direwolf Alpha, so the likelihood that they can buff these 1/1s is pretty small. Well, Firefly doesn't allow them to proc the counterspell, but they're still going to get the block here.
Yeah, so the counterspell is in theory really great for them. It does counter the flare tech. In practice, though, I mean, they swing in with the bow. They do the point of chip damage here with the one of these minions. They clear the Medea's Valet with the other, and hero power is set up for next turn to win them the game.
Yeah, so now Pimpingo and Taiwan need Ice Block, Arcanologist, or Primordial Glyph into something that saves them, or they are dead.
Yeah, and Brazil here can afford to just run out the additional minion from the Firefly and the Volcanic Potion's just not going to do it. So no surprise there, actually, that the aggressive hunter list, teched for Flare specifically to go after Mage, and they didn't even need it. The Flare didn't even being the decision maker for them. They won despite having Flare to counter Ice Block.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter does get the job done just because it puts all that chip damage on. It weaves in the hero powers, gets in a bunch of damage. Even with Taiwan with their Mana Worm into Arcanologist start, they just didn't hit, the follow-up to that, the removal that they needed. And, maybe they should have stopped more of that damage early. Maybe they should have utilized the coin a little bit faster. But then they would have been a turn-off a bunch of other things later on in the game. So it was tough.
I think that coin counterspell Medea's Valet, where they could have gotten some efficiencies on the trades and prevented the first Animal Companion, probably the best outcome they could have hoped for. I don't know if it wins in the game, but it certainly stalls them long enough to maybe see that defensive Alexstrasza or set up the 2-turn lethal with Alexstrasza and spells while the block is still up. Maybe. But that does put Brazil up 2-0, a very quick 2-0, and we're going into a third game here. Legolas on Mage against Tom on Druid. What do you think, TJ? What are we going to see here?
So Tom has Shaman as his other deck and Druid. So those are two aggressive decks that both have sort of the same weak matchups. So either that's a Jade Shaman or that's a Jade Druid. I'd have to guess. Legolas has Mage and Warlock. Warlock often a throwaway class.
Right.
Or a class that's very teched to beat one specific deck and one specific archetype. So you're often going to pick Mage, so it's probably just a well-rounded Mage. If I had to guess, I'd just say it's Discover Mage.
I mean, I think that makes sense. My guess is that you're right. Looking at Tom's choices and kind of where the rest of these matches are headed, Druid was also their ace class, right? It was one of the classes they could bring with them into that last matchup. So there is the possibility that they wanted Jade and they wanted to have the flexibility to win a control matchup. I think they need it to be Jade here, or they're going to have a really, really tough time beating any well-rounded Mage deck, to your point. So Legolas all set up there, comfy on what appears to be a nice couch. And
that's what he plays on all the time. It's also, I actually interviewed him like yesterday or 2 days ago. He was in the same spot.
Okay, so he
likes that spot. That's his Hearthstone spot,
that
man.
side of that couch is his Hearthstone spot. I like it.
Yeah.
They could ostensibly, we're on match point here. They could close out an authoritative 3-0 against one of the most talented lineups in all of the global games.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. That would be a pretty big deal for them.
I mean, it's a huge opportunity. Brazil, I think, was a cool underdog that we were excited about earlier in Phase 1, and they've since established themselves as like a meaningful competitor that's going to do a great job on the global stage. So I feel like Taiwan is a big ask, and they could do really well here. If they win 3-0, that basically guarantees that they are out so far ahead that they're almost certain to advance.
Yeah, I mean, they could lose the next two 0-3-0-3.
That's about the only way, though.
Or 1-3-1-3.
Yeah,
but probably not 2-3-2-3, because then they're probably third, and they're probably okay still.
Yeah, pretty good tiebreakers.
But it's getting close there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see what it is that they've got for us here, because if they can win this, if they can shut down the Druid style from Taiwan, and there it is in fact Jade Druid, this is Brazil's opportunity to demonstrate, dominance, really.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. This matchup is very tough for the Discover Mage.
Yeah, you have to navigate an awful lot of potential armor gain, so you have to go very quickly, and you have to do a lot. I think this is actually a matchup where if you're the Mage player, you're not able to set up a 2-turn lethal with Alexstrasza, so you need to keep doing consistent chip damage. That turn 1 Mana Worm is actually more important in some respects than the turn 9 Alexstrasza.
Yeah. Or you just have to hope that they have no armor gain and Alexstrasza as quick as possible. That's the other way to do it. But again, this matchup is tough, and you can see that Tom also had the Gluttonous Ooze teched into this deck, which is actually incredibly effective against Discover Mage because of the Medivh, which oftentimes one of the ways that you lose this matchup is Medivh comes out, Firelance Portal, Meteor, a bunch of those, medium-sized removal spells come out, and they have a board that you can't deal with because you lack card removal. That's how you lose. But how you win is Mage doesn't pressure unless they get an ideal start early on. You just get free time to build up your Jades and ramp up your mana, and then by the time that the Mage is able to apply pressure, your Jades are huge, your armor's huge, and your confidence is huge.
Right, and I think there's probably a strong argument to be made here. When you're teching Jade Druid, there's only so many cards that benefit from Fandral, right? It's Wrath, Nourish, Druid of the Claw if you run it technically, and then Feral Rage. And I think usually if you're going to include Fandral, it's because you're including Feral Rage, because that combination is one of the most important. You generally are wrathing for draw if you can, almost no matter what. You're generally nourishing for draw every time. So the only reason you run the Fandral is to get the benefit of the charging 4/6 if you run Druid of the Claw, late game for Jade Idol synergy potentially, but almost always I think for the Feral Rage.
Yes.
So I'm curious here if Tom is going to try and just maximize value, and he can Fandral, Innervate out the Wrath. That 4 damage Wrath draws a card and kills the Mana Worm, which is a threat that they do want to deal with early on. There's not really a substantially better line here unless they're really valuing those resources and they want to like Wrath for 3 to kill the Mana Worm and Hero Power. They could also just Fandral and pass, I guess.
Ooh.
I don't know that I like that.
I'll take door number 1.
All right. Door number 1 it is.
I knew it was behind the door.
So this
So
is...
that analogy doesn't make sense.
It doesn't quite hold up. But, okay, so Eye off the top is really nice. And, I mean, this is a great start here for Taiwan. Brazil has an answer, which is, I mean, good. But the longer this game goes, the better it gets for Taiwan.
There's the Gluttonous Ooze, all the insurance. They are going to need some help off the top once this Aya comes down, but they have 2 draws to find something impactful to play after turn 6, which I believe is plenty of time.
Yeah, it's
now,
interesting.
one thing is that the Acolyte of Pain is going to be able to come down here, and with the Wrath already being gone, it's probably going to get a couple draws.
Yeah, and I mean, Brazil also running Gluttonous Ooze, interesting. So this is maybe not the matchup they had originally intended to hit with this. They've just got to be, I think, a little concerned about the possibility of any significant armor gain. If there's an early Feral Rage, or if this Earthen Scales can even hit Aya potentially, I mean, that's 6 armor. That's a lot of value that they're slowly not going to have enough damage to burn through, right? Ever since Ice Lance went to the Hall of Fame, it's very difficult to create enough burst damage, even after Alexstrasza, to round out a game against an armor-gaining class.
Ever since Iceland got sent to live with the nice family on the farm.
Yeah, exactly. Got dropped off at the uncle's house and never came back. So this is going to get tricky. I mean, Brazil, I guess you would Arcanologist then Arcane Intellect here?
Yeah, if you're going with Arcanologist, you want to pick it up first.
Right, thin the deck before you hit the Arcane Intellect so you don't draw a secret.
Or even just Arcanologist before you attack in with the Acolyte of Pain as well, but then you don't get to see the draw. So what if you pick up something that you'd want to play over it? They're trying to think now, what would we play that we drew from Acolyte of Pain that would cost more than 3 mana? And they realize there's nothing.
Yeah, it
I
seems
don't think there's
unlikely.
anything.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's so many things here. Like they've got 8 cards in hand, so
I like Gluttonous Ooze. There we go.
yeah, it's a dead card in this matchup otherwise. So just the tempo of being on the board is important. Removal is difficult for Druid.
Ooh. That is not a good draw. They need some card draw. They need some card draw badly, or a big boy.
Yeah, I mean they need to clear this board as much as possible. So I think Feral Raging for damage here is probably correct. They can kill the Acolyte of Pain. Aya can kill the Arcanologist. I begin to wonder at this point if they don't hold the Wild Growth. Yeah, it looks like they're going to hang on to it because at this point they actually value the draw more than they value the ramp.
Oh yeah, 100%. Ooh, so the Jade's a 3/3, so can't
ping
it.
to Volcanic.
I mean, they can Volcanic Potion Ice Block. Ice Block's not going to get popped the next turn, so they have Medivh's Valet for the 3/3 Jade that's going to come out of that. I mean, the way that this is going, the coin is almost certainly safe for Alexstrasza, because even not just the setting your opponent to 15, but also the 8/8 on board as early as you can get it, which Druids struggle to deal with those big minions. That's really important.
Yeah. I think you've called exactly what they're after here, because even if something substantial comes down, the 3/3 is not a huge issue with the meteor in hand. So.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see, actually. Yeah, Taiwan. I mean, they've got to get on the board, right? That's all they can do here.
Yeah, they have to hold the ooze for the possibility of Medivh, so they can't put that on as a tempo to pressure. Because Medivh will blow them out of the game if it comes down and they don't have an answer to the Atiesh.
Yeah, and this is good from Taiwan. They did set this up as a board that can't be cleared by Meteor. They correctly understand how to sequence and position their minions, so they've got that going for them. But I mean, this is.
Let's see if they want to use the coin here. Nope. I definitely like this. They could have cleared the board with Meteor, Coin, Medivh's Valet, but instead, again, very important. Coin must be used for.
Yeah, they're holding it for this next turn, and I mean, this is.
It's going to come down, and there is no answer to it whatsoever. Taiwan has nothing. This might be a 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, the tricky thing, though, is that Brazil is all in on the Alexstrasza, right? They've got one Fireball in hand, but they gave up their Frostbolt.
I think they got an Arcane Intellect. They got a Meteor to protect it.
I mean, really, the question is what removes it? What can Taiwan do that kills it?
Double swipe. Jade Behemoth into Jade Behemoth into swipe. Swipe Wrath Hero Power, which is not a possibility anymore since they use the second Wrath.
Yeah, they're going to be
hunter.
Up against the wall here. So you think it's just coin Alexstrasza here on turn 8 and ask the question.
And
now,
get him.
They can actually clear here, technically. They can Earthen Scales, swipe, and Hero Power, and that will technically do it.
That doesn't sound pretty.
It sounds awful.
And then that just gives free reign for Legolas to just draw, pick up a bunch of spells. I mean, they can pick up something else here from the excess mana, but...
Jade Behemoth is a good stall.
Jade Behemoth into swipe? Is that what I said?
That is exactly what you said, so I guess we gotta wait and see.
Well, they have the swipe already, so they just need a second Jade Behemoth. But, I mean, this is most likely going to eat a Meteor, and then 6 damage is going, or 8 damage is going to the face, sorry.
Right, and I mean, they can Meteor Fireball, so that's actually 14 damage to face, and then sets up basically any other burn is instantaneously the game. Now, there is one Earthen Scales in hand, so there is the possibility that, on a subsequent turn here, they can hit the, what's going to be a 6/6 Jade coming off the Jade Spirit with Earthen Scales. That's going to give them 7 armor, so it might buy them the one critical turn they need. It all comes down, honestly, to what comes off of that Primordial Glyph.
Yeah. I think this turn might be slated for Arcane Intellect Meteor. You just want to find that extra burn. You're putting your opponent down to 11 this turn, so all of a sudden if you find second Fireball outside of armor gain, you have almost a guaranteed lethal the next turn, so there's a possibility of that. They could Primordial Glyph this turn as well. Maybe they find a better way to deal with the board, but I mean...
I don't know what a better way to deal with this board would be at this point.
Yeah, you still leave the 5/5 up.
I mean, I guess they could find Polymorph. Polymorph would do a lot of work here.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's a big deal. Ooh,
Molten Reflection is actually very powerful right now.
Can't fit it in with... Actually, I think you go with Molten Reflection. You Fireball.
You Fireball the Jade Behemoth, yeah.
Now, I don't know. It's not an 8/8. It's an 8/6 now.
But 2 8/6s, I mean, that's still very difficult. I mean, if the one will die to the swipe, but the second one lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Fireball Jade Behemoth. I don't know. Maybe Mirror Entity plus Meteor would have been better, because then you hold on to the Fireball. But with 2 8/6s, it's very likely that one of these Alexstrazzas connects again next turn, and then all you need from that Arcane Intellect is one more burn spell. But that's actually tough. They had to make that decision on the fly, and I don't know what's better. I actually, when I saw that Molten Reflection, I was like, oh, yeah, get him. But I thought about it for a second, and I was like, eh.
I mean, they need to hit second Fireball or, like, second Medivh's Valet. Like, they need to find more direct damage, because the rest of the stuff they can hit, unless there is a Medivh in this deck...
There's almost certainly a Medivh in the deck.
Well, but even if there is a Medivh, we know Gluttonous Ooze is in play, right?
Yeah,
like, they have to Medivh and hit something. They have to hit Fireland's Portal. Like, they need more direct damage, because if they don't hit direct damage and the armor gain starts to occur, like, Earthen Scales into Feral Rage basically prevents the Druid from ever dying if they can clear this board.
So this basically has to be swipe plus Tar Creeper. You swipe one, hopefully set up for the fact that your opponent might need to trade into the Tar Creeper with the Alexstrasza, with the second Alexstrasza, which would kill it, and then just hope.
I think they were potentially scared there of the possibility of a counterspell.
Yeah.
They definitely sat for a long time to decide. Probably just said, you know what, if it's
Yeah.
counterspell, that's the game anyway. So
Yeah. Well, Frostbolt would do it here. So would Fireball, and so would Medivh Saleh. And that's game. And Legolas is going nuts, man.
yeah,
Look at him.
that is an incredible
3-0.
performance for Brazil. I mean, Taiwan is just like, you know what? The reads were great. The card sequencing, I mean, holding that coin to get Alex Strauss out, like that is such a hard matchup to navigate as the mage player, and Brazil did it just flawlessly. Look at it.
That's actually quite frightening. The ominous light and the slight lag on his webcam, the shakiness.
A little bit of a cackle almost. Yeah, that's incredible. What an incredible series for Brazil. A flawless 3-0 victory. They were never really under any threat of losing any one of those 3 games.
No, it was a pretty dominating win. One of the most dominating wins I've seen in a long time. Well, there was like the match like week number 1 where Netherlands against Romania. And they
just ruined them.
They had like the double Galaka Crawler against Pirate Warrior, and they just Galaka Crawler, and then won the game of Hunter. But outside of that, yes, this is the most dominating victory.
And just such a great series, navigated so well. A very aggressive lineup, which is not actually what I was expecting. Like coming here tonight, I thought, okay, we're gonna see some Jade Druid, we're gonna see some slow roll stuff. There might be the occasional like token shaman, but it's gonna be a lot of games with a lot of back and forth, a lot of paladin. And then we saw Brazil say, you know what? No paladin. Let's go hunter. Let's go face. Let's go fast. So very, very well played by Brazil. We're going to take a look here at the scoreboard. A 3-0 victory. Wins with Druid over Rogue, Hunter over Mage, and Mage over Druid.
Yeah, very nicely done. And now taking a look at the standings for Group D. Brazil and New Zealand both perfect at the top with 3-0 victories. New Zealand's seemed a lot closer when you watch each match individually, but both end up with the same score. And Hungary versus Taiwan, they can take solace in the fact that the other team that lost also lost 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough position to be in for either of those teams, and it's going to mean that the final standings in this game, or in this group rather, are really going to come down to each individual game from this point out, because a 3-1 win is so much more impactful than a 3-2 win, as they're jockeying for position with the team that they're currently tied for. Yeah.
And looks like we do have an interview ready with Leo Main from the winning team. Hey, man, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, you
What's up, DJ?
You didn't get to play today, did you?
No, I didn't. Because my team is awesome, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask, does it feel good or does it feel bad that you didn't get to play? But I'm guessing the answer is it felt good?
Yeah, it feels really good. Also because I'm doing the interview, so yeah.
You're doing something, man. This is the real work they have to do is to do the interview. But a real question. You guys played Hunter today. We don't see much Hunter. You guys had a little bit of weird tech in there. Why did you guys decide to play the Hunter in that series?
Well, I don't think we can tell the strategy.
Okay.
It's fair to say that we had Flare, so we were looking to play against Mage with Hunter. So since his classes, it had Mage and a weaker deck, we thought he was going to play with Mage, so we played with Hunter, decked against Mage. So yeah, usually we put Hunter with a deck that's not good against Mage, and the Paladin. So if we get against Mage, he probably will play Mage because Paladin is just like the best deck, and we get to play Hunter with the Flare.
Yeah, well, it worked out. You really didn't even need the Flare because it kind of just ate a counterspell. But at the end of the day, you guys had an impressive series. How confident are you feeling moving forward into Stage 2? Do you guys think you have a good shot to finish first in your group, especially with New Zealand also starting 3-0 in their first match? How confident are you guys feeling?
Well, this is a tough group, but with this one, we're feeling pretty confident. We thought that this was the hardest opponent, but yeah, feeling pretty confident.
What was Legolas yelling at the end? He was getting pretty intense, man. Are you allowed to tell us? Is it safe for broadcast?
PG-13, yeah.
Nah, he didn't curse. He just said to draw either Frostbolt or Medivh Saleh. to win the game that turn. So
Yeah.
he was screaming to bring more energy so we could draw it.
Yeah, well, he was even screaming after you guys drew it. After you were
Yeah, because we were really,
Okay.
really happy. 'Cause
Yeah,
we
I
won,
could tell. I could tell.
In a bad matchup, so yeah.
It was quite scary, but it was also pretty heartwarming to see you guys that emotional. But thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week. A big congratulations on your 3-0, man.
Can I say a couple words before?
Oh yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank God for this win. We knew that the opponent is strong, but I had faith in our work. The team is focused. Happily, we got this win. Now is work hard this week. The teacher will fix the mistakes, so next game we can make Brazilian crowd proud. Yeah.
I'm sure you have, man. Thanks for joining us for the interview.
Yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
I feel like he was saying more than just Matisse Valet, but I'm just saying.
It's the most passionate I've ever seen anyone about Matisse Valet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but a very impressive win, a 3-0 for Brazil, and a great start. But we have one more match left on the day, a rare third match for the Thursday broadcast, but an exciting one nonetheless. We're going to have to take a small break before we jump into that one, but don't go anywhere, guys. More Hearthstone Global Games right after this.